How you doing? I'm Sean Patrick. I am your friendly neighborhood tarot card reader. When I'm not reading tarot cards, I'm driving across country. Sometimes I drive a school bus. But I'm very passionate about tarot. I've been involved in tarot for, I don't know, over 25 years. I have to watch my speed here. I'm actually driving from Chicago to Springfield, Missouri, which is a run I do a great deal. And it's been a while since I put up a video on tarot, specifically going into the meanings of any individual card. And that's what I'm doing here. I want to talk about the Chariot. And I was meaning to make this video a long time ago, actually, probably about 2 years back, and I haven't. But this card here, I actually have it in my pocket. In this particular card comes from the deck, the J.K. Waite. J.K. Waite's, there was a tarot deck that came out in the 70s, out of print, very expensive on eBay, but Tarot Collectibles just did a reprint of it with the permission of the creator. JK stands for Jupiter King, and he's a Japanese gentleman who really made the Rider-Waite tarot deck popular in Japan. Otherwise, they're real heavy in Marseille. But it's interesting they call it the JK Waite, and the differences are subtle. Got a bunch of bikers passing me. The differences are subtle, but it's really more of it models more of the BOTA deck, the builders of the Abitum, in which you color that deck in yourself, which does an interesting thing to your consciousness because you're putting your energy into the deck. And it's just an interesting thing, the BOTA deck. I think Paul Foster Case was, an intellectual giant, particularly in regards to the tarot. I feel like you don't hear enough about Paul Foster Case. And just the insight and knowledge he brought to tarot is pretty incredible. But the J.K. Waite seems to be more in line with the BOTA tarot deck. And the Chariot, if you look at the Chariot is associated astrologically with Cancer. Cancer being a water sign, being a very emotional astrological sign, right? And then if you look at his shoulders here, if you look at the shoulders, we have two personalities. We have a face that's happy and a face that's crying, right? We have these two different emotions. The origins of this go back to ancient Greece, and this is pretty much been symbolic with the performing arts, and to have those two faces as shoulder pads, it has a lot to do with kind of getting our emotions in order and under control or in alignment. They're also moons. If you really look at them, these shoulder pads are moons. They're not just faces with, different expressions. They're moons, which has to do with, lunar energy, obviously, which is, card 18, the 22 major, the moon card. And again, that has to do with a lot of emotional energy. So this is pretty much getting yourself emotionally together and having those two extremes and just coming in balance with yourself emotionally. And it's interesting then that symbol is the universal symbol for performing arts, for the theater. These two faces with extreme expressions on them. The occultist, Elvis Presley, once said that life is a stage and we each play a part. And there's something to be said about that, right? We're not really the persona. I mean, sure, we have a personality, we have a character, but what we are is something much deeper. And it's interesting that the chariot is a vehicle, right? It's a chariot. It's getting you to point A to point B. Ironic that I'm driving across country right now, we're talking about the chariot. I'm in a vehicle, and this truck has fuel, which is the energy I need to go forward. And this is what we are. We're vehicles, right? Your body is a vehicle. Okay, we have chi, we have life force. It's the energy we need to live, right? But this is just a vehicle. This isn't the driver. The driver is here. It's that self, this will come up in Hinduism. God dwells in you as you, right? It's that bigger self, your true identity, not the persona. And that's kind of expressed here within this card, right? Particularly within the shoulder pads, anyway. Then we have a square in the center of the chest. Squares, again, they have to do with forward, have to do with foundation. It's being solid and strong and kind of having it together. Here it's placed at the heart. So again, not only is the chariot integrating its emotions and getting everything under control, but he's solid in his heart. Okay? His foundation is here, and it's stable and unshaken. That is what is expressed here with that square within the heart of the chariot. We have the lingam and the yoni in front of the chariot. This comes from Hinduism, and it's the integration of these two different sexual energies. That's a theme that pops up a lot within the tarot. We have the wings, and that circle, which could suggest solar energy, and the wings being, I like to think of as the wings of Hermes, really. But elevation, flight, again, chariot is all about moving forward. When this card comes up in a reading, when I'm doing readings for people, not always, but oftentimes, it can suggest a big movement taking place, or some type of relocation going to point A to point B. The stars on the crown. Here in the JK weight, we have 3 5-pointed stars. I talk about the rhythm of 3 with the Empress card, so you can check that out. There's a lot of things that fall in lines with rhythms of 3. It's a very empowering number. And here we have the 5-pointed star. This has to do with the golden ratio. This goes back to, Plato. In fact, in the 1940s, Disney did a whole thing on sacred geometry. You can find that on YouTube. It's worth watching. Where they go into, not Plato, Pythagoras. Where they go into Pythagoras and sacred geometry. They talk a lot about the 5-pointed star, and how within that we have the golden ratio. That's just the perfectly proportioned symbol. It's also, the star was one of the earliest symbols of Christianity, actually. It had to do with the 5 wounds of Christ, the 5 wounds of Jesus Christ. But if you look at the Rider-Waite Tarot, it's not 3 pentagrams. It's one 8-pointed star. 8-pointed star has its own interesting symbolism behind it too. It typically means like triumph and control and just the power of your willpower, the power of your will. And that's really what the Chariot card is all about. It's exercising your willpower. It's putting your willpower out there. The Chariot is basically the magician. I like the back of these cards too. The Chariot is basically the magician forcing his will onto the universe. He's making something happen. The Chariot card is really about discipline in a lot of ways. It's having that warrior energy, and it is really about moving forward even when you don't want to, right? You're relying on your past experiences and you're driving forward with willpower and determination. And if you look at the card, there's no reins on the Sphinx. Okay? He's controlling those Sphinx, right, by willpower alone, which is also indicated in the wand, right, that he's holding. Wands and magic have to do with exercising your will. You point your wand, like you're exercising your energy and bringing forth. So that kind of encapsulates the Chariot, is exercising your will, cultivating discipline to do what you need to do to get something done. Okay, big movements happening within the Chariot card. This also goes, I mentioned Plato accidentally, because this card also goes to Neoplaton. It goes to Plato as his analogy of the charioteer. His analogy of the charioteer, if I remember it correctly, he basically said, we are like a charioteer being driven across the sky by 2 Sphinx. I'm sorry, not Sphinx. Here in the Tarot, it's Sphinx. By 2 Pegasus. One has earthly desires and is earthbound, and the other is driven towards more celestial heights. It has other ambitions. And the charioteer, in this analogy, is you have to bring both those energies together in balance. Okay? So that was Plato's analogy of the charioteer. And this card is a direct example of that. What else can I say here about the charioteer? The canopy is stars. We kind of see this a little bit too, right? And again, I mentioned this in the Empress. She has 12 stars on her head. So she has made a decision, and the universe is now conspiring in her favor. That's kind of what's happening too with the Chariot card. But you're exercising your will into the universe. Okay, you're creating your story, your reality with the Chariot. Okay? And again, you're doing things that need to be done. Even if you don't want to do them. This is discipline. This card has a lot to do with discipline, which is very different from, say, card 17, which is the star, which is basically muse, feeling inspired, right? If you could take something like fitness, for example, there's people who say, they're waiting around for the inspiration to go to the gym and work out. They just don't feel inspired. They're waiting for inspiration. There's no inspiration. You're inspired. Phenomenal, great. Use it. But that's not what discipline is. That's not what the Chariot is about. Okay? It's, you're doing things that are hard, that are difficult, that you'd rather be doing something else, but you're making a point to do what needs to be done so you can reap the benefits down the road. Okay? So, you know, within a lot of like motivational speakers around fitness, they basically say, you know, fuck your inspiration, just do it, have the discipline to get things done. And that's another good example of the Chariot card. The Sphinx are, these two Sphinx, they're black and white. With Plato's analogy, it was Pegasus. But these are also the pillars that we see popping up throughout the tarot that we first seen with the High Priestess card, the, you know, Pillars of Solomon, these two different polarities. Here the Sphinx are also the lovers, which was then with the previous card, right? They're the two lovers. They are now being driven forward under the control of the charioteer, you know, who is the magician, who is you. And then we'll see those two again, really throughout the tarot. The one comes to mind is when they're thrown from the B Tower, which is also the Emperor and Empress, right? So there's a lot of symbolism within this card, really within all tarot. I mean, that's what tarot is. It's symbolism, right? And symbols are the language of the subconscious mind, as you'll probably hear me repeat. What else can I say about the Chariot card? So this is why I also say it's kind of associated with the builders of the additive deck. You know, I see more inspiration here, and I know the differences are subtle, but I see more inspiration here from the builders of the additive tarot over the weight. You know, here we have the Hebrew letter Het. You know, the C is silent. It's like Chet. That letter has to do with a tent, or sometimes a wall, and it's basically having our boundaries, right? Setting our boundaries. It has to do with being protected as well. Chet is the Hebrew letter that is associated with this card, and you'll find that between, you know, the Tree of Life with the Sifrots. You'll find it with Bina and Gibaru. Okay, it should tell you about that energy. I'm trying to think what else. I mean, I'm going into the symbology of this card the best I can. You know, those are the symbols. It's just a quick breakdown of things I can think off the top of my head as far as the symbols of this card. And again, if it comes up in a reading, a lot of times, not always, it depends on the other cards around it. It could have to do with having a big move, because there's a lot of movement taking place with the Chariot card. But it also has to do with cultivating the discipline we need just to get things done. Okay? It has a lot to do with relying on past experiences to get through things. The Chariot card has a lot to do with cultivating that warrior mentality, pushing through it and getting things done. And that's essentially the Chariot card. If that card came up reversed, then I might read it reversed. I'm inspired to do so. I often do reversals, which would indicate to me that there's this almost a stagnation, really, right? And a lack of willpower if I was to read it reverse. That's about it. You know, those are all the things I can think of right now with the Chariot card. I love this deck, by the way. I'm so happy Tarot Collectibles put it out. I haven't even shuffled this deck yet. I got it a while back, and I haven't put this deck to use yet, and I will. I think this is going to be the primary deck I'm going to be reading with for a while. awesome tarot deck, the J.K. Waite from Tarot Collectibles. This is the 1989 version. And ask yourself, you could ask yourself, when in life were you having a chariot moment? When in life did you need to just plow forward and drive forward despite the odds? You know, when has that happened to you? How does this fit within pop culture? Think of, and I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but think of movies, think of literature, think of your favorite book, or books where the central theme is that of the chariot, right? Okay, that's all I got. And this is the seventh card within this deck. So when studying tarot, it's good to break the major cards down in rows of 7. Okay, the first 7 cards, you know, dealing from the Magician to the Chariot, is you're learning about yourself. You're learning what you're capable of. The next 7 cards, 8 through 14, you're really learning about yourself and the world around you. It's no longer what you're capable of, it's how you're interacting with your environment and putting those things that you've learned to use. And then the last 7, card 15 to 21, that last 7 really is our relationship to a higher power, to the universe, you know. So when studying tarot, think of those 3 7s. 3 7s have to do with good fortune. You know, you think you're playing a slot machine, you get the 3 7s. It's great fortune, right? Crowley had a book, 777, based off like Kabbalistic correspondences. But sevens, they're about spiritual awakening. You know, that's what the tarot does. Studying this stuff, you start to have a spiritual awakening, because all of these cards are within inside you. Okay, they just need to be unpacked here, you know. All these cards already exist within you. They just need to be integrated and then kind of unpacked, if that makes sense. But when you're studying tarot, it's good to break it down in 3 7s. Okay, those first 7 major arcana, that again is things you're learning and developing within yourself, your relationships to yourself. The next 7 is your relationship to those around you, the world around you. And then the last 7 have to do with your relationship to a higher power, the divine. That's it. You know, over the course of a few years, you know, I sit here, I talk about tarot cards. It's my passion, it's my love. I've covered the first 7 cards of the major arcana, and I don't think I'm going to go further with the explanations of the cards, unless of course I get a request. If people comment and are seriously interested in my take, in me going through the other cards and giving you a detailed explanation, I'm happy to do that. Okay, but remember, these cards just aren't for your you know, they're not just for fortune telling, you know, which is what I do, basically, fortune telling. But tarot it's a book, you know. It could be up there with the Bhagavad Gita or the Bible or the Quran or other things. It's really the ultimate picture book. So, thanks for watching. Again, I've covered the first 7 cards. If you go through my videos in some detail, I think I'm going to stop it there unless I get requests otherwise. So, be blessed. Thanks for watching. Day. It should be in Springfield, Missouri, and think about this. 3 more hours. Not bad. 3.5 hours. Okay, be good. Thanks. I'm Sean. I'm out.